Hey folks, today we're going to take a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called Rambo, the board game from Everything Epic Games. If you like what you see throughout the rest of this preview video, then I would encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page to find out more and hopefully back the project. You can do that by following the link in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video. Well, I said the name of the game, so you know mostly what to expect. Rambo the board game is based, of course, off of the popular movies, though I would say it's, at least in what I'm going to show you here in the preview, it is mostly based on the sequels, which have the action in the jungles of Vietnam, not the one where the first movie where he's actually really depressed and kind of goes crazy in a small town. But that would be interesting too. Maybe that'll be an expansion content. Rambo, the board game, has you take control of not only John Rambo, but also some of his compatriots as they carry out missions in the war-torn jungle. You can play the game solo as well, but for the most part, you'll be working together in order to meet your mission objectives, not meet your mission failure objectives, and take out enemies, use your gear, use your special abilities, your tactics, things like that. So, I'm going to show you a bit about how the game is played with a prototype version of the game, so do bear in mind that what you see there may change in the final version. That's why you should go to the Kickstarter page to find out even more information. For instance, while I show you a few prototype miniatures here, there's going to be way more options for miniatures in the final version. That's just one thing that might change. But then we're going to come back and we will discuss it further. Rambo the board game is a cooperative game for up to 4 players, and can also be played solo. Players take control of Rambo and his compatriots from the movie. Each player needs to work together to complete a mission in the war-torn jungle. Meet your objectives and avoid critical failures, and you'll win the game. Start setting up the game by having each player choose a character sheet. Every character has their own strengths and unique abilities that they bring to the mission. The character sheet has a lot of information, including an alert meter, which starts at the bottom and denotes how visible the player is to the bad guys, a stamina rating, which indicates how much damage they can take before suffering wounds that can permanently damage you for the mission, several special abilities, both passive and requiring activation through momentum tokens, and finally the character's stances, which determine what you'll be doing from round to round. Every character has a unique set of starting gear. These can be weapons like knives or guns with their own range and damage ratings, or simply useful items like a canteen or radio. Some gear requires special actions to activate and can make a lot of noise when being used, so you need to consider carefully before using them. Every player also gets a set of unique tactics cards. These cards can be exhausted, that is, discarded, in order to either use their special ability and help the team out of a pinch, or to gain a specific momentum token as indicated in the top left corner. One player is given Rambo's knife to be designated as the team leader, who will set the order of play for the heroes each round and make the final decision when the group is deadlocked on a choice. Next, you must set up the operations map. Select an operation and one of the missions that constitutes it. A set of setup cards will tell you how to lay out the map tiles, buildings, special terrain, and the fog of war cards on each area, as well as what special rules are in play. The mission setup cards will also tell you what your mission objectives are. In the mission laid out here, the heroes need to find out and defeat the commanding officer, and it will also have which enemy cards you use and which cards to use in the threat deck. Speaking of that, once you have all of those threat cards gathered, shuffle them together. The threat deck represents dangerous hazards the players will come across either in the form of enemy actions, environmental effects, traps, etc. These will either decrease the capabilities of the players or increase the capabilities of the enemies. The letters on the cards represent enemy troops. If there are enemy troops matching that letter on the board, they will be activated when this threat is drawn. Each mission will also have unique condition and hazard cards that increase the difficulty of the mission as time goes on. Gameplay takes place in rounds, with every player getting a turn each round. At the start of the round, however, each player will discuss and simultaneously choose a stance and a tactic to play for the round. Stances give you different abilities while you're in that stance, like movement, armor, card refreshing, raising or decreasing your alertness level, and gaining momentum tokens. Once everyone has a stance and tactic locked in, everyone will take a turn in an order decided by the leader after listening to the rest of the player's feedback. Each player turn has a number of steps. First, the player must draw a threat card and resolve it. In addition to any hazards that may be inflicted upon the players, enemy troops may move as well. Look at the letters and compare them to the enemy tokens on the board. If any troops match the activated letters, refer to their reference card and follow the directions, like moving closer and attacking the nearest visible hero, etc. Enemies who make successful attacks will automatically deal their full damage, minus the hero's armor, if any. If a hero takes an amount of damage equal to their stamina, they take a wound. A wound is placed on their furthest left stance, making it unusable for the rest of the mission. Some missions end in failure if one or all heroes take too many wounds. Enemies will usually come onto the board through the marked deployment zone, through the effects of Fog of War cards, or as the game progresses due to the conditions of the mission. Next, you'll activate everything in your stance. This can grant you an action and or movement to use right away. However, some stances also cause you to raise or lower your alert level. If you're not in cover, which are the purple spaces on the board, and your alert level gets to yellow or red, enemies can clearly see you and can attack you when they activate. And if your alert level is completely maxed out, even the purple cover spaces won't help you. And going into cover means you'll have to roll the special hazard die and refer to the unique hazardous condition card for the mission. Movement can be split around your action, and almost all weapon cards will require an action to utilize. If you're making an attack, you target an enemy in range and in line of sight, and deal all of your gear damage to them minus their armor rating. Keep track of their damage, and if it's enough to meet their total health, they're removed from the board. Gear will also require you to raise your alert level in most cases. Heroes will often move into areas with Fog of War cards placed down. Upon entering, flip the card. This will tell you where new enemy troops are to be placed and could have other effects on the team as well. Stances can also allow you to refresh your used tactic cards by taking a certain amount of them back to hand, or give you an armor boost for the round that negates some damage from enemies, or even place trap tokens that deal damage to enemies that stumble into them. They can also give you momentum tokens. There are 5 different types of momentum tokens in the final game: combat, leadership, stealth, survival, and ordnance. Some of the special abilities, tactics, and gear cards each hero has will require that you use or meet a certain threshold of momentum tokens in order to utilize them. Once all players have had a chance to take a turn by using their stance and abilities, the round ends with your used tactics cards being exhausted. A new round begins with players choosing a new tactic and stance and activating them. Continue in this way until either the mission objective is met or the game ends in defeat for the heroes. That is Rambo the board game. Well, there are a lot of cooperative miniatures-based board games that have you taking control like a squad or a team and having to work together to get through different missions, things like that. But I think there's quite a few things that are specifically interesting and unique about Rambo the board game. For starters, the fact that there actually are not a ton of games that are based on, while of course Rambo is a fictional character and movie, it is based on real-world circumstances and war, and there aren't a lot of games like that, especially that fall into this particular genre. Those games that are based on real-life wars tend to be more sort of epic, grand, competitive affairs, like the memoir games, things like that. However, in the case of Rambo, you're working together, and they give it a little more of that extra real-world feel by having things like the Fog of War cards, by having you have to have actual military tactics and, maneuvers and stances, they call them here, things like that. And the gear that you have, obviously you play a lot of cooperative board games that are based on fantasy and science fiction, and you have things like flaming swords and, holy water and things like that. In this case, it's a canteen, a radio, your army boots. But it gives it that not just real-world feel, but also gets you into the mindset of the movie as well. If these are the characters that you love. And every character is unique. That's another interesting thing, too, is that it can be very easy to say, okay, 1 or 2 things is different about them, and that's it. Just choose a character that you like. Your tactics are unique, your gear is unique, your special abilities in your card, all these different things, so you have a distinct feel from the other players. Everyone has something that they're good at. Obviously, if you're Rambo, you're going to be really going in there and killing things with either your Bowie knife or your gun. But with other characters, you might have to be more stealthy and more maneuverable, trying to support the other players as well. The fact that, there is a leader, but the leader is always having to make decisions based on the feedback of the other players as well. It means that everyone is always involved, including the fact that you choose your stances and your tactics for the round simultaneously. Everyone has to commune together to figure out what is best to complete the mission. The game is pretty forgiving in how you take damage, but you become more and more restricted the more damage that you take as you take wounds, less stances that you have, and you have to very carefully conserve your tactics cards because while you can get them back with your stances, it can be difficult and time-consuming to do so, especially when enemies keep getting deployed and your objective might be slipping further and further away from you. So in that regard, the game can have a very tense atmosphere to it, and again, really get that exciting action movie feel to it. So I would say, first off, if you like cooperative games, especially squad-based cooperative games, or solo games, if you like the movie, if you like war games in general, something that has at least a little more grounded feel than orcs and dwarves and elves and things like that, definitely don't take my word for any of this. You can go to the Kickstarter page and find out more information for yourself. There will be a link in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video. As I said, I can only show you a fraction of the game. There's so much more stuff that they're going to be unlocking as part of the campaign, more miniatures, more pictures and things for you to see of what the final version will look like. So go there and find out more. That is Rambo, the board game from Everything Epic Games. Thank you so much for watching, as always, and for supporting our sponsors. Take care.